This episode of Ham Talk Live is brought to you by Tower Electronics. For connectors, cables, and more, call 920-435-2973 or visit pl-259.com. And by ICOM. Heard it, worked it, logged it. Visit www.icomamerica.com/amateur for more information about ICOM radios.
It's Ham Radio.
Hey, good evening, everyone. It's time for Ham Talk Live, episode number 228. New radio on the space station, recorded live on Thursday, September 17th, 2020. I'm your host, Neil Rapp, WB9VPG. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Ham Talk Live. Tonight, we're joined by Frank Bauer, KA3HDO, Lou McFadin, W5DID, and Kerry Banke, N6IZW, and we'll take your calls live in a few minutes. Last week, Andy and Tony Maluzzi were here to talk about the collegiate QSO party that's taking place this weekend. So if you missed that show, you can listen anytime over at hamtalklive.com or on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube, or you can catch the rebroadcast over on WTWW. That's 5085 AM, and that's Saturday afternoons, about 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time is when the rebroadcast runs over there. Couple of things here before we get started. There's a new QSO party coming out of the Nashua Area Radio Society on September 26th and 27th, and actually I'll have a story about that on the next edition of Newsline, which comes out actually late tonight or early in the morning. So you can hear more about it there. Check out n1fd.org for all the information. It's a new event that NARS is putting on to get people on the air, especially beginning contesters. And it's September 26th at 0000 Zulu and runs through September 27th at 2359 Zulu. Also, just in, Lloyd Colston, KC5 FM, wrote in that after many hours of monitoring, the Voice over IP WeatherNet has secured, along with WX4NHC at the National Hurricane Center. They had scores of reports submitted for Sally, impacting the Gulf Coast, and Paulette impacting Bermuda. They report VP9NI in Bermuda, said that the 146.82 repeater was back in service with a broken antenna. So, Bermuda got hit, but they're on the air at least. And, if you're interested in helping out the net, visit voipwx.net or reach out to, KD1CY. And, he's at KD1CY at ARRL.net. Here's a short little clip from the end of the net here a couple of days ago.
You're very welcome, Julio. We'll be at it till she weakens to a tropical storm, which looks like sometime late tomorrow afternoon. And appreciate all the stations on here. This is exactly what we need to do for the Hurricane Center, and who knows, maybe some of the reports will eventually be used in the advisories depending on what we get. So appreciate everybody's support. KD1CY.
Roger, that's the same thing we're doing probably sometime early tomorrow afternoon. All righty, thank you, Rob. We'll be standing by. I may not be on this one. I've got a couple radios going, a couple computers going. You know what I mean. We'll talk to you later. WX4NHC.
Okay, there you go. So, yeah, the next day they did end up shutting down, so things are calm for a little bit. But again, voipwx.net or kd1cy at awrl.net by email if you want to help out with that. So now we're switching back to Eris. So we're going to talk about this new radio up on the International Space Station. So get your questions ready to go. If you're listening to us live on Thursday night, you can give us a call after the interview by calling us. And let me give you the telephone number so you have it ready to go. It's not time to call just yet, but let me give you the number so you have it ready. It's 859-982-7373. Again, 859-982-7373. You can also tweet us. We'll be watching Twitter tonight, as always. It's at Ham Talk Live on Twitter. If you're on Spreaker, you can type into the comments there, and I'll be back with Frank, Lou, and Kerry right after this word from Tower Electronics right here on Ham Talk Live.
Jerry, what's up, man? I haven't seen you at Sunbucks in a while. I used to see you every morning getting coffee. What's up?
Well, I can't afford Sunbucks 5 days a week anymore. I had to spend my money on PL259s. You know, those antenna projects I've been meaning to do. I had to do them before my HOA finds out I have antennas.
That's too bad, Jerry. I miss seeing you and catching up over coffee. You should get your PL259s from Tower Electronics. They have great stuff. Jerry, you're back. Oh, QRM Heterodyne Frappuccino. That's a good choice. How's it going? Did you get all those antennas up before the HOA police showed up?
Yeah, I got them all done. Thanks for telling me about Tower Electronics. Now I can have my coffee. I just saved a bunch of money on my PL259s by switching to Tower Electronics.
Don't get caught without PL259s. Visit Tower Electronics online at pl-259.com or at a Hamfest near you. Or give them a call at 920-435-2973. And be sure to pick up some power poles, adapters, and cables too.
Sorry for the delay. Your host, Neil Rapp, is reading a book on anti-gravity, and he just can't put it down. Now, here's more Ham Talk Live.
Welcome back to Ham Talk Live. Thanks to Scott and Jill at Tower Electronics for sponsoring the show tonight to help bring you Ham Talk Live, and you can visit them anytime at pl-259.com. Our guest tonight returning is Frank Bauer, KA3HDO. He's been licensed since 1974. In 1983, in preparation for the first ever ham radio operation from space, he was responsible for setting up and operating the worldwide retransmission of Space Shuttle air-to-ground communications from the Goddard Amateur Radio Club station, WA3NAN. This initiative provided a critical conduit of information to hams attempting to contact astronaut hams in the pre-internet era. Frank now serves as the amateur radio on the International Space Station International Chairman. He holds bachelor's and master's degrees in aeronautics and astronautics from Purdue University up the road here, and his career in aerospace spans 4 decades within NASA and private industry, and he is the 2017 Dayton Hamvention Amateur of the Year. Also joining us tonight for the first time, Lou McFadin, W5DID. He is the 1991 Hamvention Technical Achievement Award winner and has been involved in all of the human spaceflight hardware developments going all the way back to Owen Garriott's flight. He was the lead on AO40 and the Eris Next Generation Interoperable Radio Station that we'll be talking about. And Kerry Banke, N6IZW, was the lead designer, and manufacturer of the multi-voltage power supply. He has built 5 of those so far, and he is a microwave engineering expert retired from Qualcomm. He has supported Aris and Sarex back in the day, starting as one of the Sarex ground stations in the early 1990s. So we've got quite the space experts on here tonight. So Frank, Lou, Kerry, welcome to Ham Talk Live tonight.
Thank you, Neil.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. It's Lou. We're ready to answer any tough questions.
Well, the first ones are the easy ones because you get them ahead of time. So
softballs.
We'll throw you a few softballs first. So we've talked about this new radio system on this show for quite a while, and tried to drum up some financial support, and it finally was launched a few months ago, and now it's finally up and operational. So, Frank, tell us a little bit about the current status of the radio and how people can use it down here on Earth.
Sure. First off, Neil, I want to thank you for the opportunities to bring the Aris program, and in particular this next generation radio, to your audiences over the several opportunities, and also to drum up some financial support, which we always are in need of in Aris. But let me just say that we are so excited because on September 2nd, we finally got the radio system turned on. People are using it right now in voice repeater mode. And we actually did our first school contact with it in France last week, and we've got another one coming up in Spain tomorrow. So it's working out exactly the way we would have expected, and we're so excited to have it operational now.
Yeah, now, it's taken a while to get this fundraised and built and designed and everything, but it took a while. It's been sitting up there for a while, so I don't know if everybody realizes the whole process of not only getting this radio up there and calibrated and programmed and ready to go, but also just getting it, once it's up there, into being operational. And that's kind of what I know you've been waiting on. You're just like, any day now, and it finally happened. So tell everybody a little bit about the whole drama of trying to get this thing turned on.
Yeah, I think what I'd like to do is I'll say a couple of words, and then I'd like Lou and Kerry to give their impressions of hearing it on the air the first times. I will say it took a while, primarily for two reasons. One is that we still had some paperwork that needed to be worked through. We thought we had everything done, and then there were some little items that got brought up from an operations perspective, some procedures that needed to be tweaked a little bit. And then the other part is the crew availability. Chris Cassidy's doing a great job with Aris in his expedition. He was the only one up there for a while, and actually the two folks that came up on the SpaceX flight, Doug Hurley and Bob Banke, they were up there and they were focused on a whole bunch of EVAs they did. So and during those EVAs, Chris was engaged in that too. Chris Cassidy was engaged in that. So you think about if you have a house and you got 300 experiments you're trying to do all at the same time, plus the ham radio. There's priorities, and there's times when we have the opportunity. It just took a little while for getting some of the paperwork done and getting the equipment set up. And so let me turn it over to Lou and give his first impressions of the radio system, and then Kerry, because Kerry got to operate it early too.
Well, we're very happy to have this thing up there and operating. And my feeling is that this is a culmination of many years of thinking about it and wishing we could have it done, and many people saying, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? And we've been doing the why nots, and they're working on these things. It just takes a really long time, and there's safety aspect is such a big part of it, and making sure that it's going to work for a long time. Think of a power, like a little power supply that you buy from one of these companies that sell them for around $100, and you put that on orbit, and at $10,000 a pound to go up there, you're not going to use the cheap components. You're not going to take any shortcuts because you're not going to have a second chance. You better make sure it's right, and that's what all the paperwork was really about, I think. Just making sure it's right and safe.
Terry?
Yeah, well, we've been working on this thing since I think it started back in about 2015, and for me as the lead designer, I think the biggest challenge was being able to fully understand all of the NASA requirements. There are so many. I mean, there are basically thousands of pages of documents. I mean, you'll have a 700-page document that refers to other 100-page documents that have to be understood so that you know that you're going to meet their requirements and go through their rigorous testing and meet their protocol.
Yeah, the red tape is always a challenge.
Yeah, but it's necessary for this. I mean, realistically, we can get frustrated, and the three of us have at times, but we know that it's for the good of, our program, and it's for the good of the astronauts on board. They're valued resources. Space station is a very valued resource. We want to make sure it's safe, and as Lou said.
I've never heard any of our team say, this is too much trouble, let's quit. Not one.
And that's, that's something that's desperately needed for a project like this.
It takes tremendous dedication. I mean, we had an amazing team from that perspective, being dedicated.
Kerry, we've talked about this power supply a little bit before, but since you're here with us live here tonight, talk a little bit about why this power supply took such a long time to figure out and put together, and why you can't just, like you said, run down to the store and grab a power supply and throw it up there.
Well, again, as Lou and others said there, it's all about safety. NASA has very defined requirements for safety for the space station itself as well as the crew, and so as I say, you have to be able to fully understand these requirements and figure out how to meet them. This power supply, it's not just plugging into 120 volt AC as you might have on Earth here with ham stations, or 12 volts DC from that matter, but it's 120 volt DC or 28 volt DC, and then and the power on the space station is can have some interesting fluctuations because of those 300 experiments going on that Frank mentioned. If something happens with one of those other experiments, you may have a real terrific transient or perturbation on that power system that you have to be able to accommodate and recover from. So that's really what takes such a long time is, again, making sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted, that the safety that's required by NASA is built in.
And making sure that all the connectors are compatible and you've got different voltage supplies depending on where you're at on the station. And that's what I saw is the beauty of this is that, it'll work under any of those different conditions.
Yeah.
And the thing is that, go ahead, Lou.
I was going to ask Kerry to tell him what kind of voltages, pulses, the 120 volt input had to withstand.
Well, that's right. I mean, that 120 volt input, it has to withstand a positive, 370 volts and a negative 270, something like that. And running on 28, it's similar voltage proportionally on 28. So it's not, not just a nice clean supply like your like you might have on your workbench.
And it had to work in the Russian segment.
Right, and do the other voltage there. Lou, talk a little bit about the radio too. It is a radio off the shelf, but there's been an awful lot of stuff done to it to modify it to serve on the space station.
Well, it's most of the modifications are to make it so that it's more user friendly for the crew, and so that, for example, on your car radio, if you have it in your car, you're talking to one of your buddies, you turn it around to a certain repeater, and you're just having a grand old time, and then you get home, you turn off your car, and you get out and leave it. And then when you get back in your car and turn it on, it's still on that station. One of the things we didn't want to happen, we wanted to come back to a standard position, a standard configuration when we reset it, so that if the crew is using it and they forget what they've done, you have another crewman come to use it, you want to be able to tell them to do this reset, and then you know exactly what steps they need to take to do whatever you ask them to do. It's like looking at the world in a different way, because it's on the station. Go ahead.
No, I think the other things are some of the aspects of, like for voice repeater, having a high-powered fan. We want to have as high a power fan on there, if you will, to get the airflow through. But then we also have to not be too noisy on space station. So, there's these engineering trades that you have to do as part of the design process that, several individuals like Ed Chrome and Kerry and Lou were engaged in to try to make sure that we met, we were able to have something that would be quiet and also support continuous operations, if you will.
Yeah, and continuous operations is always the challenge too, and from the sounds of things, it's getting used pretty well right now.
That's very true. Go ahead, Lou.
I'm just saying we're very happy to see them using it, or it wasn't used much.
Yeah, I think, basically, Neil, you were talking about, how we're planning on using it or how we're using it. Right now it's in repeater mode, voice repeater mode. One of the challenges that goes along with that is it's FM. And anybody that has heard any contact or any communication up to space station, when a whole bunch of people are trying to use it in the capture effect, you'll get bits and pieces of people's signals. So, we're actually hoping people don't use real high power operations, but we know that you can use this equipment with just 5 watts and an aero antenna, especially at 3 o'clock in the morning when there aren't as many people there.
That's the key, I think.
Exactly.
Well, we're experiencing some of that, but I don't see any way to avoid that.
Yeah, that's a challenge on any kind of satellite up there. It's just a lot of people trying, and it is a whole lot of fun to hear all the people there. Well, before we go to break, Frank, talk a little bit about what we can expect from this system over the next decade.
Oh, that's a long haul. Well, let me start with the fact that where we're at now, which is, we're going to operate this on voice repeater for a few weeks and then probably APRS. But Kerry and JVC Kenwood, who built the radio systems, we've got now the flight unit, a second flight unit that is going to go on space station, and we will be launching that whenever it's delayed because of COVID, but we're hoping to launch that and get it into the Russian service module. Once we get that, then we can operate two capabilities at the same time. In other words, we could have APRS running all the time and then voice repeater or slow scan television or something else. So the idea is, we want to have multiple capabilities for the hams. Let me also say that, if a crew member decides to talk, doesn't happen that often, we all know that, but if they do, they can pick up the microphone through the voice repeater and talk through that too. So we're going to have those capabilities. This multi-voltage power supply is going to provide a lot of different capabilities for us for the future. So one of the things we're looking at, one of the things Lou's working on right now is an L-band repeater capability, L-band uplink capability, since we have L and S-band antennas. We're going to get our connected into this next generation radio system, our ham TV back up again, hopefully soon. That's being delayed because of COVID, unfortunately. We also are building other systems, or designing other systems, I should say. We're talking about flying a Raspberry Pi. We call it an Eris Pi, which will provide us an opportunity to do some mode switching from the ground, and then also some operations using it and some software-defined radio systems. So. And then, we are talking about, we've talked about this lunar gateway activity, but before we fly that, we want to test that out, and we want to do that on space station. So might be different frequencies than we used for lunar, but we want to try the software-defined radio systems that we're discussing that will be multi-mode capability for telemetry, for television, slow scan television, and other things like that. That answer the mail?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're going to take a break right now, and when we come back, we'll take your phone calls and your questions at 859-982-7373, and we'll do that with Frank, Lou, and Kerry right after this word from ICOM America right here on Ham Talk Live. Get out and be active with ICOM's new IC705 and its optional multi-function backpack. The IC705 is your perfect QRP companion, as you have base station features and functionality at the tip of your fingers in a portable package covering HF, 6 meters, 2 meters, and 70 centimeters. This compact rig weighs in at 1 kilogram or just over 2 pounds, with RF direct sampling for most of the HF band and IF sampling for frequencies above 25 megahertz, and a large 4.3-inch color touch screen with live band scope and waterfall. It runs 5 watts with a BP272 battery, 10 watts with 13.8 volts DC. You have sideband, CW, AM, FM, as well as full D-Star functions. The touch screen, micro USB connector, Bluetooth, wireless LAN, integrated GPS with antenna and GPS logger. The micro SD card slot speaker mic comes standard and supports QRP operations. And the perfect accessory for your IC705 is the optional backpack LC192 with a special compartment for your IC705 and room for accessories for soda activations or just a day in the park. The IC705 has now received FCC certification, and we expect product to be shipping to dealers by the end of September. Visit ICOMAmerica.com/amateur for more information on ICOM radios.
Join the conversation. Give us a call at 859-982-7373. Again, the number to call is 859-982-7373. Or, if you'd rather type than talk, tweet us at Ham Talk Live. Now, here's Neil Rapp with more Ham Talk Live.
Oh, yeah. You're talking ham radio, baby. You're listening to Ham Talk Live with Neil Rapp.
Welcome back to Ham Talk Live. Thanks to ICOM America for sponsoring the show. Check them out at ICOMAmerica.com/amateur. Check out Ham Talk Live every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time right here at hamtalklive.com. Be sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Well, it's time for your phone calls right now. So if you have a question for Frank, Lou, and Kerry, give us a call. Again, that number is 859-982-7373. Or you can tweet us. It's at Ham Talk Live over on Twitter. And if you're on Spreaker, you can type a comment. And if you're listening to us on WTWW or the podcast edition, we're not here. We're doing this on Thursday night. So sorry you won't be able to ask your questions. But if you are listening to us live on Thursday night, give us a call at 859-982-7373. Okay, well, we'll check the tweets here and wait for some phone calls. But Frank, let's talk a little bit about the funding and support on this. Where are things on having all this stuff paid for and going and keep it going?
Yeah, I think first off, again, I want to thank everyone out there that have generously donated to the ARIS program and in particular the next generation radio systems. We are, while we're talking about the flight units, we are not done building these systems. I mean, Lou in his garage and Kerry in his laboratory there, they've got a bunch of other other systems. Lou's got a bunch of cables we still need to fabricate, procure, and Kerry's gotten 5 of the units done. We still have 6 more to go, actually. We need additional units for training, for simulations, as well as for testing. And these units have to go in different parts of the world too, so that's why there's so many of them that we need. And this is normal when we build something. So we are not done yet. It might look like because we've got a radio on board that we're done. We've got 2 we want to have on orbit, and we need the other ones to support the infrastructure for the next few years. So any help we can get there, we are always looking for it. You can go to the ARIS website, of course, and there's a donate button there.
All right, very good. 859-982-7373 is the phone number if you'd like to call in and ask a question or leave a comment here for our guests tonight, Frank Bauer, KA3HDO, and Lou McFadin, W5DID, and Kerry Banke, N6IZW. The some of the folks responsible for the new radio system on the International Space Station. Guys, what have you heard so far as far as comments from people, in the last couple of weeks here that have been able to use this thing? What have you been hearing?
Well,
Louis, you want to take it, Lou?
I'll just say what I know. Most people are saying that it's working great. Some people are complaining because they've experienced this phenomenon called FM capture, but that's not something we can fix. But people will have to learn to be a little more polite and considerate when they're talking. Wait till somebody drops out before they start talking again, like they do on the ground with repeaters. We try to be very careful, but other than that, it's working great. One of our prime objectives was to be able to run it continuously and do this crossband repeat, which we could not do earlier. And this one works perfect doing that. So I think it's working great.
Yeah, what I would say too, Neil, is that this is a cap off of this November, and Lou remembers this very well because we were together when this happened. This November 13th represents the 20th anniversary of operations on the International Space Station with ARIS or ISS ham, as it's sometimes called. So we've been operating. As of November, we're going to be celebrating our 20th anniversary of continuous operations. So having this on board for that is wonderful.
Yeah, very well done, and it's just amazing how well you can hear from up there. It's just incredible, and I can't wait to try out the packet. I've got my new handheld that does all that packet stuff, and I'm chomping at the bit to try it out. So I'm ready for that APRS mode here. You talked a little bit about. I'm sorry, Kerry. Did you have any comments? Anything from people that have been using this?
Oh, it's primarily when I've just been listening in myself here, being on the West Coast and right near the ocean. I'm kind of fortunate that I can either be the first or the last sometimes in some of these passes. But boy, it's busy, it's clear, and a lot of what I hear are people will announce their call sign with their grid square and then let it go and let somebody else do it. So that's kind of what I'm hearing a lot from a sort of a reporting standpoint, but it seems to be working nicely.
Now, Frank, I know you've talked about this Lunar Gateway a little bit, and so, the next question is, what's next? And you've answered a lot of that, but once you get all these built, all these power supplies built for the training and some backups and a second station up there, what's on the radar next?
Well, we're kind of working this. I'll say this simultaneously. We're looking at this Raspberry Pi capability because we can use that to actually do commanding, and then we're in a situation where we're almost like a satellite. Space station is a satellite, but we've been relying on the crew to operate us all the time and change modes and things like that. Well, I mentioned there's like 300 different experiments on board, so us right now, and you talked about APRS, right now I think our way we're going to do this is on a periodic basis after the school contact is over. We're going to do the mode switch because the crew will be there. It'll be a quick changeover. So those are the times I'd say for those that are interested in looking at different things. At the end of a school contact might be the opportunity where you might see a mode change happen. So you can kind of track that as to when you want to listen to maybe repeater or APRS or whatever. And then I mentioned, we're moving into the microwave world. I mean, we've operated ham TV on S-band, and we will do that again. And then we've got on board a software-defined radio, a Lime SDR, but that's more for reception, not transmission. But we want to get into having a digital system on board that will be simple for people to use on the ground. The ham TV system is using the equivalent of a set-top box, like a television type of box that does the conversion, and we have pretty astounding software designers that build the interface to allow us to do ham TV. We want to do the same thing, and this kind of capability will also allow us to do lunar gateway, so we can do things with the right coding sequences to get as much signal out, since it's such a long distance. So we're going to try that on space station. Another thing to think about is that the commercial crew program is going to be bringing more people on board space station. And there's going to be commercial capabilities there too. And we're starting dialogues with some of these companies called Axiom and others that are going to be flying these systems and these modules, and seeing if a ham radio there would be good. So if a crew member goes up, those of you that remember Richard Garriott, he was on the air a lot, and we're hoping that some of these private astronauts, as they're called, will want to use ham radio and talk to people. So that's another thing that's on the horizon we're looking at.
Very good. Well, Trip K5TRP says he's a little bit late here tonight, but we thank you for listening, Trip, and glad that you commented that you're here. And we'll give one last call here for phone calls at 859-982-7373, or on Twitter, it's at Ham Talk Live. And just checking here to see if we've missed anything. So those are some exciting things coming up for amateur radio in space, and I'm so grateful for the leadership that Frank, you have given, and Rosalie and the whole crew, and for Lou and Kerry working on designing all this stuff and getting it all ready to go. You've done a fantastic job, and you're to be commended for all the hard work and expertise you've put into this. Well, let's go around here. Frank, I guess let's start with you too for some final comments here, because I know you wanted to bring Lou and Kerry on here, because they have a perspective from designing these things. So if there's anything we've missed, feel free, go ahead and ask those questions, and any final thoughts here before we go tonight.
Yeah, the one thing I would say, Neil, is that first off, I want to thank Lou. Lou's our chief engineer, and he has for decades now done so much for amateur radio, and in particular amateur radio on the shuttle, Mir, and the International Space Station. I want to really thank him for everything he's done, and Kerry's expertise and strong support and activities. We would not have gotten these systems ready if it wasn't for them. And then, of course, the support of JVC Kenwood, because basically they re-engineered the radio systems. And Phil Parton and Shin Iota are the two that were the ones we interfaced with. Like I said, they re-engineered that Kenwood to make it space-worthy for us. And so we thank them for that, and Kenwood, JVC Kenwood, for that too. But I think we're very excited where we're at, and we're on the precipice of or I should say, the threshold of a bright future. So, I think I'll turn it over to Lou and get his thoughts, and then over to Kerry.
Well, I keep saying that we're on we're opening up a new world for ham radio for us anyhow. Human-intended radio in space is a new thing, and we hope that along with our partners, we're going to be doing ham radio on the space station a long time, I think, and we're trying to make sure that we're opening up a new era for them.
Go ahead, Kerry.
Yeah, well, I'd just like to thank everyone involved. I mean, from all the support that we've gotten on this project from years and years back, all the way through getting it up there. I mean, it's a lot of people involved in the amateur community, NASA, JVC Kenwood, all the way through ESA, and just an awful lot of people have touched this project as we've worked on it and put it together and gotten it up there. So really appreciate it. Without all this input and help, it never would have happened.
Now, Kerry, you brought up something important, and I do want to say this, Neil, is that we are doing this internationally, and every one of our partners have been critical in making this happen too. Kerry mentioned ESA. It's Sergei Sambarov in Russia, been absolutely critical in us getting ham radio up there early, and continuing to make sure we have redundant systems on space station too.
Yeah,
can you imagine?
It is the International Space Station.
Exactly.
Lou, I think you were trying to say something there. Go ahead.
I was going to say that if you look at it from the European viewpoint, here we come along, a bunch of hams, and we say, hey, we want to build a power supply and put it in your module to be used. And they're saying, wait a minute, what are you guys doing here, bringing this power supply? They've been so helpful. Everybody involved has been helpful. NASA, ESA, and the Russians, and all the many contractors that work with the European Space Agency, they've been helpful too. So I'm just pleased that we all still like each other. That's wrong.
Oh, very good. Well, Troy W9KVR says he's a little late to the show here. He's going to listen to the rest of it later, so he's got the second half and before the first half. But thanks, Troy, for listening. And also over on Twitter, KE8FZT says great show tonight, and thanks for the show, and thanks to Eris. So, guys, thank you for being here tonight and all that you've done. And Frank, there's one obvious thing that I think we haven't mentioned, and that is, if people don't know how to listen to the space station, how do they find out the information about the space station operations and where to listen?
Yeah, I think there's a couple places they can do that, but one is eris.org. We do have on there, we have bulletins for each one of the school contacts. So, if you want to listen to a school contact, you can do that. And we always post the questions ahead of time so you can actually know the question and hear the astronaut's answer to that. We also have on there, how to use the equipment, what frequencies, and uplinks and downlinks for those that want to use the crossband voice repeater. It's 2 meters up, 70 centimeters down, with a tone. And so That's all on the ARIS website. Also, AMSAT has that on their website too, as to when things are operational. So I think those are good resources. And ISS Fan Club's another area. So those are like several of the resources you can go to get information to understand the operations.
All right. Well, so ARIS.org and AMSAT.org, check them out and give a listen. And maybe, after you listen a while, give it a shot and see how it goes. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. I really appreciate it. I know this is a very hot topic at this point because the power switch has been turned on. So thank you so much.
Very welcome. Thank you, Neil, for this opportunity.
No problem. Well, that is a wrap for this week's edition of Ham Talk Live. Thanks to my guests, Frank Bauer, KA3HDO, Lou McFadin, W5DID, and Kerry Banke, N6IZW, and everybody out there in cyberspace for listening and typing in tonight. And invite you all back next Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. To find a list of our guests and past episodes, go to hamtalklive.com and click on the show schedule link. And if you like the show, please leave us a review on iTunes or wherever you listen. So for now, this is Neil Rapp, WB9VPG, saying 7375, and may the good DX be yours.